Hello and welcome back to Music Nuggets. As you can see, we're in store for something a little bit different this week. So I'm starting a new series called Oh You Make Dope Beats.
Oh, you make dope beats?
And it's basically just to show how I make things in software, how I compose music, how I make beats. And a lot of the techniques that I use to be creative with the software. I think the software isn't really just a means to an end. Quite a lot of the time it is actually the creative spark for things. So I'm going to look at things from two different angles today. First of all, I've been making a record in China here for the last year or so, so it's almost ready to go, and I've just made it entirely in my spare room here, completely in the box, using a couple of tools. Obviously, if you watch the channel, you know that I like the Axolotl DSP board, and that's been used pretty heavily. I have my MIDI guitar thing, my horrendous, strange MIDI toy guitar thing that I use for getting MIDI information in the shape of guitar chords. But besides that, really, it's just exploring the software and trying to realize ideas, but also generate ideas within the software. The first thing we're going to look at is a beat that I found myself reaching for quite a lot. And a lot of the time, what I do when it comes to creating beats is I think of feels and vibes from different songs that I love already, and think about how those beats are constructed, maybe reconstruct them by listening to them, and then put them back together by playing them into the software, and then maybe changing them just to make them a bit more personal. So that's what we're going to do today. The beat that I've used a lot on my record is something similar to the Porcaro shuffle in Rosanna by Toto. So we're going to look at how to make that sort of human beat layer feel, I guess, just using MIDI gear. And here is one I made earlier. As you can see, I'm a Cubase user. This is a very old copy of Cubase. I think it's Cubase, yeah, it's Cubase 5. I can see it in the corner there. And we're working with Easy Drummer, which I think is really good in terms of sitting nicely in the mix and stuff like that. And also there's a mixer in the VST itself where you can really sort of fine tune how the drums sit together. So I think it's a really good tool, and there's plenty of drum kits within that software, and you can add drum kits on. But I'll just play one that I built earlier, and then we'll deconstruct it and reconstruct it. So that was me trying to get as close as possible without spending ages of time on the Rosanna beat. So drummers, please don't come down too heavy on me for this. I was just trying to achieve that general feel, and I think it's pretty decent for what it is in software. It's really heavily quantized because this controller isn't the greatest, so I can't really get feely on it. But let me just take you through how I would go about doing that. You may have noticed there's an extra region here, an extra audio region, but that's a surprise for later, and in actual fact we'll just generate that from scratch too. So let's just say bye bye beat, and we'll take this piece by piece. I'm gonna bring the tempo right down so that we can be easier with how we put things in. And first of all, thinking about what that beat is, first of all, is it straight or swung? That's something to consider, and it's going 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So like the hats are definitely doing this kind of thing. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So it's eighth note triplets with the middle note missed out. So it's basically eighth note swung. And what really sort of makes that beat and makes it groove is the interaction between the ghost notes on the snare and the hats. So like it's got this kind of feel. And again, just this controller is pretty stiff, so I'm not going to attempt to do the ghosties in real time. What we're going to do is we're going to edit the ghosties after I've played something in as well as I can. So like what's happening is the eighth notes, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a, the snare is going on the and of all of those eighth note triplets. So it's like 1 and a, 2 and a. And then it doubles up on beat 3 each time, because that's where the backbeat should fall. So like 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a, that sort of thing. So when you pair all that up and you get used to the sort of flow of it, you end up with this kind of pattern. And like I say, I'm not worrying too much about ghosties just now. I'm just going to put that in nice and heavy handed and then edit the ghosties in. Again, just thinking about the way that drum beat works. So here we go. Helps if we have the click on. Okay. Wow, really lost it towards the end, but because it's all the same, I'm just gonna, first of all, take it a little bit further than halfway. You can see I've got eighth note triplet as my quantize setting up here, and I'm just gonna quantize it and then drag that back to the middle and duplicate it. So now, and we've got a weird clunky thing happening here. So that should actually be on the and. Let's take that away, duplicate it again now that it's fixed, and I'm going to glue that together and then take care of these ghosties. So the first thing I'm going to do is give the hats a bit more of a shuffle. So what you want is heavy on the downbeat and lighter on the upbeat, generally speaking. So you can see that that's 1 and, or 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a. So all those as, I'm going to bring down the dynamic of those. And let's just select all of those. Let's work with half of it for now, because again it's the same thing. I don't want to have too heavy an editing job on my hands here. Could even just do it with a couple of beats, but for the sake of getting some variation in, probably better to use a whole bar. So now we can see the hats clearly because we've muted the snare and highlighted the hi-hats. So everyone that's on 1, 2, 3, 4, I want those nice and strong, which they are now, and then less velocity on the upbeats. And I'm not being too careful about making these velocity changes all the same, because it's nice to have a bit of variety. What I really need to be careful with though is that I don't adjust the downbeats down like I just did. Okay. So now that should kind of lurch and swing a little bit more. That's better. That's cool. And then let's mute all of those and take care of the ghost notes. So really what we're paying attention to here, first of all, is the strong snare beat is every third beat of each, bar a 12 if you like. So 1 and a, 2 and a, 3. Now the good thing about the beat layer here is the 3 is always going to have a note close to it. It's going to have a ghosty immediately after it, just due to the nature of how it's played. So it's really easy to see those and adjust them up. And I'm just going to make those full whack. It's something I might want to adjust later, but for now we'll make them full whack. And the ghosties, it really is just a taste thing as to how light you like those ghosties. Maybe somewhere around 40-ish, maybe even lighter. And again, just being careful not to adjust the main snare into a ghosty. We don't want that, otherwise we got no groove. That looks alright. Let's bring our hats back in and see how that feels. It's a little bit heavy on the main snares, but we'll live with that for just now. And what else can we do there? I had something in mind, it's completely gone. So, oh, at the end of each bar in the Porcaro shuffle, the last hat is kind of a little snare fill instead. So more like, that won't mean much until you hear the full beat together. Maybe it will if you're a drummer. And let's put a crash on the first beat. That might actually be a crash ride kind of thing. Not much of a crash. Let's have that one. Okay, maybe adjust that velocity down a touch as well. It's pretty harsh. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the kick on a separate track so you can see that's a copy of the Easy Drummer track there. And it's because I'm going to first of all put the kick where you expect it to go in the Porcaro shuffle, and then I'm going to get rid of it and do something just a bit more personal with the kick, because we're going to be creative with quantize here and generate some new material, some unpredictable material out of this shuffle that we've made already. And that's where it really starts getting fun. So let's first of all put it up to toto tempo. I'm not entirely sure what the tempo of this, but somewhere about 165 feels right to me. Maybe it's a little bit faster. That crash is cack. So that's just something that I've analysed already. I had to listen to the track earlier on, and that's where the kick has fallen. It's just a case of listening carefully and thinking, is that the right feel? Another thing to listen to is like the bass and the piano, because they're both doing rhythmic things that lock in with the kick drum. Quite a lot of the time, if you want to memorize what a kick is doing, that's the thing to do, is like think about what the other rhythmic instruments are doing, and quite often they'll be in sync. That's often what makes a good track. So yeah, like if we were going to go with a Porcaro shuffle, then that's what we'd be doing. We'd be doing like but I don't want to do that. I want to get creative with quantize here and do something a bit different. I'm going to duplicate that so that we can have a bit more variation between two bars in terms of what the kick does. And I'm just gonna be free with it and see what happens. So like, I'm kind of deliberately making it a bit more hip hoppy and detailed because of what I know I'm going to do in a minute, and I probably should have slowed that tempo down. But let's quantize that and see what on earth's going on there. There's some really kind of offbeaty ones there that I'm not entirely sure if I like, but we can move those after we've transformed this, because what we're going to do is duplicate that again. And let's say in a song you're either wanting a really drastic feel change between one section and another, or you want just to take it somewhere entirely different. You want to take it into a different feel. A good way of just like experimenting and generating new feels and new ideas is to take something that's either something that's in swung feel and quantize it straight, or something that's straight and quantize it swung. And that's kind of why I've started off in 4/4 instead of 12/8 with this, because it's kind of easier to think about. All you're doing is changing the quantize. I'm going to make that a little bit slower, maybe like closer to 150, because we're going to quantize this to 16th notes. We're going to quantize this duplicated one to 16th notes, straight 16ths. So if I hit Q, in fact, let's look at that. So that's it in swung feel, and if I hit Q now, it's going to quantize it to straight 16ths. So you can see that is doing quite a lot to the feel. It's going to change the feel quite significantly. But every time I've done this with a shuffly beat, it works really well with detailed beats. It's thrown out really interesting changes to things. So let's see what it does. That's super cool. I could listen to that all day. There's little bits of that would change, because there's kind of clunky moments where snares are falling at the same time as kicks. But as you can hear, it's a really cool way to instantly generate some new and interesting material from material that you've made already. It's a good way to change direction. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to show today. There's going to be a lot more of these. Hopefully I got the broadcasting software settings right and this isn't jittering all over the place. I've already recorded this once, so I'm not doing it again. You might be stuck with a slightly sticky recording here, but it is what it is, and I will fine tune it as I go along. So yeah, expect some more involved ones of these, where it's like full projects and looking at really wacky ways of generating compositional material. But for now, that's me. I'm out of here. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.